What's up, y'all? It's Tuesday, terrific Tuesday. We're about to blow your mind again. Okay, so Monica P is here to expand your mind, to totally blow up some of the concepts that you've grown up with and look at things from a different perspective. And why not, right? We're here to grow and change. We came here into this physical existence to expand and ascend and learn and open our fucking minds. And so that is what we're doing here in Quantum Inspirations. We're here to look at some of our old thought patterns from a new perspective, to change the lens through which we view the world. And when you change the lens through which you view the world, you change your world. When you shift your personality, you shift your personal reality, because it's really all connected, right? So, what I want to talk to you about this evening is competition. This concept of competition. And I was really hoping one of my kids would participate with me tonight, but they are all refused. So it's just me. So competition, what is competition? What does that mean to you? Ooh, I see a comment. What's up, Dan? Okay, so, competition is healthy, right? Competition is a good thing. It teaches us to stretch ourselves. It teaches us to interact with those around us in a positive, healthy way, as long as it's healthy competition, right? So I want to talk to you about shifting our children's perspective on competition. And this conversation is something that applies not only in sports, but also in your personal lives, in your business life, in your relationship with money. It really can be applied to any part of your life. And so what is that? Well, competition really, at its core, if we look at our primitive brain, is set in scarcity. Let me explain that to you. So in the past, before we evolved to where we are now, we were hunter and gatherers. We're constantly in competition with the world around us, whether it be the other family that needed food when the food was scarce, or whether it be the animal who wanted the food that you wanted, or the animal that was chasing you because they wanted to eat you. So this is how the primitive brain operates. It operates in scarcity, which is competition. And so when we are looking at others as if they are our competition, instead of looking at really competing with ourselves and becoming the best version of ourselves, we are dipping into scarcity. Scarcity is a very low vibration emotion. It's very low on the vibrational scale. So you've got your vibrational scale, and it's shaped kind of like a cone, right? So you've got your higher vibration emotions, which are freedom, collaboration, cooperation, up at the top, love, joy, peace. And then at the bottom, you've got scarcity, fear, anxiety, depression. Okay, so this concept of competition puts us in a very retracted space. And so, what does this mean when we're teaching our kids about competition? What it means is that, yes, do we want to win the championship? Yes, we do. Is it okay to win the championship? Hell yes, it is. Winning the championship is fucking amazing. It is awesome. It is a great goal to have. But when competition becomes unhealthy is when your kid is looking at the other guy, whether it be on their team or the other team, and dogging them, demeaning them, being jealous of them for their success. Because when you have those negative emotions towards someone else, you are also aiming them right back at yourself. And kids have a tendency to compete like this because this is in our DNA. This is inherited shit. These are things that are embedded into our primitive brain and into every cell of our body. Because though we have evolved, we still have not evolved as rapidly as we needed to in order to operate in like a higher dimension. Right? Okay, so what does this mean? And like, how can we teach our kids to operate from a more collaborative standpoint than scarcity competition? Well, we celebrate one another. When your kids understand the energetic importance of celebrating those around them, ooh, that's when things get really juicy. That is when your world expands. That is when you open yourself up to success and possibility. So let me give you an example of this. I'm going to talk to you about it in terms of Sophia. You know, I talk about Sophia a lot. She's 14 and she is very competitive within music. She does a lot of theater auditioning. She sings in the choir. And so she's always competing for different roles and different solos and stuff. And so our conversations used to be around how much better she was than the other kids. She was always comparing herself. And this is where we get into a negative spot. This is where we get into trouble when we start comparing ourselves to others. Instead of looking at others and seeing others' strengths and appreciating those strengths and realizing that when we appreciate the strengths of others, we appreciate the strengths of ourselves. So what I've seen happen with her is as we've been having these mindset conversations, every conversation has put us in a higher vibrational space because we're celebrating, because we're not demeaning or talking negatively about others, which means we're not comparing her to others. She's not comparing herself to the world outside of her. She's looking at if she didn't get a role, she's not saying, oh, God, they weren't even as good as me. Why did they get the role? She's not looking at them. She's looking at what she needs to do in order to improve herself. And so, do you know what we've seen? Sophia always gets the fucking lead role. Sophia always gets the star solo. She always gets the feature dance part because she's turning within instead of without. Okay. And these are the athletes that we see really, really experience high levels of success, high levels of abundance. They're the athletes who are looking at themselves when shit goes awry and not pointing the finger at the people around them. And so I'm always really, really intentional about when my kids start talking shit. Not that they do that often, but it has happened in the past. And you really do have to, when they're in the emotion, you know, when they're deep in the emotion and they're disappointed and they're frustrated and they're angry, their first tendency is to point at someone else. And this is very deeply ingrained within us. Very deeply ingrained within us. So it's really easy to go there. And so for me, my responsibility as a parent, as a higher level thinking individual is to point my kids in the right direction. Because when you start pointing them in the right direction, you're creating these neural pathways in their brain that's going to make their life a whole lot easier. Because in my growing up in this competitive state and not really understanding the healthy aspect of competition versus the unhealthy scarcity aspect of competition, I have a lot of old stories that I grew up with in my head that I really had to intentionally rewire. And so if we're setting our kids up at a young age to understand this, the amount of neuroplasticity in their brain, which means their brain is so moldable and so changeable. I mean, they've got all of this fresh, beautiful golden space in order to create very fast connections. And so what happens when we look at this from a quantum, why can't I think of the word? I talk about this all the time. A quantum field or a quantum studies aspect, you're setting your kids up to be very self-aware, very self-sufficient, self-motivated, self-responsible. And they're setting themselves up to step in to the quantum field of infinite possibility because they're sitting in higher vibration emotions. So there's a study that shows that it really is a very, very great tendency, for a very predominant tendency, for people to look at problems that occur outside of them. So let's say, for instance, let's talk about a wreck. Someone is looking out the window and they see that there's a wreck in the intersection, right? And so they're looking and they're blaming. They're like, oh, that's their fault. They're seeing something outside of themselves and pointing a finger, right? But then if they're the ones who get in the wreck, like if I'm the one who gets in the wreck, it is my natural tendency to point on the person outside of me, right? Outside of me, like I didn't do it, even though it may have been my fault. I'm naturally looking for a way to make it their fault. And that's like a defense mechanism, right? That's a self-preservation mechanism. Okay, but we can rise above that because we are intelligent, adaptable beings. And so when we're teaching our kids about healthy competition, about not talking shit about the other player, about not demeaning the other player, about not being jealous, we're setting them up for success. We're setting them up for self-governing, self-aware practices throughout their life that is going to spill over in their work life, in their marriage, in every single relationship. They're going to be very self-aware. They're going to be very intentional. And so let's talk about jealousy. This is huge, huge. We even see in kids that their natural state is to look at other people, even on their same team. And when there is an athlete who is doing better than them, who has a stronger skill set, shoots the 3-pointers better, does a better layup, whatever, they have a tendency to look at them and be jealous. This is human nature. Jealousy is human nature. It really is. But jealousy is a very low vibration emotion. And so when we step into feelings of jealousy, we are shutting ourselves off to cool shit happening in our lives. Because like I said, it's on that freaking cone. It's down. It's a very retracted emotion, which means we're literally closing ourselves off to really beautiful, awesome, high vibration experiences in our life. Okay, Chummy says, I do this to myself. Tell me more. I've got some interaction. This is fucking awesome. Oh my gosh. But yes, this is so freaking huge. And so I'm going to go to personal experience with my kids again. My girls' horseback ride. And when they first started riding horses, I remember, you're watching your competition. Like you go in the ring, You do your thing, you do your jumps, you come out, and then you're watching your competition. And it was their initial tendency to be kind of snotty about it. And if they didn't win against their competition, then they would really kind of, they wouldn't even necessarily say it. It was more about a feeling and a look on their face, right? But you don't even have to say anything. Just the vibration alone is enough, really. And so I would refocus them. I would always refocus them because they're creating new neural connections. Okay, cut down myself more than others. Need too much to be the best or better. And this is natural. This is really natural. And so, and that's like really good. Like you want to be the best version of yourself. And so let's look at the positive there. You're looking at yourself. Okay. And it's okay to like be, I don't want to say hard because hard doesn't have a positive vibration to me. Like you don't want to be hard on yourself. You want to hold yourself accountable. And so then let's talk about internal dialogue. Like, what are you saying to yourself when you do make a mistake? Like, what kind of comments are you making to yourself? And so what we can do is our natural tendency to be hard on ourselves and have negative internal dialogue when we screw something up is to very intentionally decide that you're going to pivot. Every single time that you say something super negative to yourself, when you screw up, you're going to stop, you're going to flip it, and you're going to say the opposite. You're going to say the opposite. Because what happens is when you make a mistake and you go into the negative emotion and you screw up, you screw up, you go into the negative emotion, you're not really seeing through the proper lens because this is the thing. This is neuroscience. What happens is our brain is receiving trillions of signals every second. And the number one way that we receive signal is through our eyes. Like 80% of everything that we receive into our brain goes through our eyes. And most of that is filtered out because you can't process all of that at the same time. It'll just put you into a freaking seizure. So do you know what your brain filters out? Your brain filters out anything that is not in the same emotional state that you are currently experiencing. So when you make a mistake and you're really hard on yourself, you're stepping into a low level vibration emotion and you're shutting yourself off to all positive experience. And so this is why internal dialogue is so important. So you're saying to do better for myself, to make myself better. I'm saying, this is what I'm saying, is that when you make a mistake, you need to be easier on yourself about it. Or instead of, when you make a mistake, instead of having negative internal dialogue about it and coming down on yourself, immediately thinking about what you could have done better. And so an example here is, let's say a kid is on the court and he missed like all the free throws. He kept missing the damn free throws, okay? But he had a really good couple of assists, okay? When that kid comes off the court, the first thing that the coach should say to him is, you did a kick-ass job on those assists. So immediately going to the positive instead of the negative. And so, yes, do we want to address the mistake? We do. But do you want to address the mistake first? No, you don't. Because you're in the negative emotion when you address the negative mistake first, which means that you can't get from negative to positive. You gotta step in the right direction, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? Oh, and I have a pointer for you. This is a great tip. This is what you can do, is you can get like a rubber band and put it on your wrist. And anytime that you have negative internal dialogue in any situation, take the band and flip the fuck out of yourself. Flip it really hard. And I'm going to tell you why this works. You're going to flip it really hard, and then you're going to say the opposite to yourself. Say something positive to yourself. And this is why it works. Because what happens is your brain creates a connection between pain and negative internal dialogue. Your body doesn't want pain. This is a survival mechanism, right? And so when you make that association with pain every time you talk to yourself in a negative way, your body's going to say, oh shit, pain, negative internal dialogue, I don't want it. And so you are dismantling shitty neural pathways that cause you to have negative dialogue with yourself, and you're creating new neural pathways that want you to have positive dialogue, because your body says negative dialogue physically hurts me. That's a great trick you can play on your brain. Thank you so much. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. I think I need to give you a prize for the interaction. I really appreciate it. Okay, so this is like the practical step that you can take is, we have a tendency, we want to root our kids on, right? Like we really want to support their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Like we want to support them. We want to be there for them. We want to hold their hand and hold them up and like ride the wave and go with the momentum with them, right? But it's so important that you be that steady, large voice for them that points them in the right direction when they are emotional. It is so important that you as a parent find a space of neutrality so that you can serve your child when they are competing. Because when your kid is in the championship game and they screw up and they come to you and they're upset and they're highly, highly emotional, the worst thing that you can do for them is to go down that negative spiral with them. It's the worst thing you can do, because even though you really want your kid to succeed, it's our tendency to like go into that emotion with them, but you're not serving them. All you're doing is energetically amplifying the negative state that they're already in. So the best thing you can do is redirect them immediately, pivot them immediately. Something negative happens, it's halftime, they're in the middle of a game, you have an interaction with them, they're very upset. You point out all of the shit that they did right. You point out everything that they did right, and then you make them reverbalize it to you, because that way you're going to help them to shift into a higher level emotion so that they can actually function in the rest of the game. Because if you don't redirect them, they're going to be in that same low vibration space. And what's going to happen? All they're going to see is the screw up. That's what they're going to go for. That's what their brain is going to allow them to see and experience, because they're stuck there. And that's why we're here, right? We're here to guide them out of that. We're here to lift them up. And so we have to be really intentional about what we're saying and what we're doing and how we're feeling when our kids are in high stress situations, to guide them through it. It is one of the best things that I have gotten out of this mindset work with quantum physics, metaphysics, like really understanding how energy works. It's so huge to share it with your kids. One of the greatest ways to share it is sports. I mean, it's so fundamental and foundational to their mental development. It's mind-blowing. Okay, so a mistake is a lesson learned. Don't focus on the whole mistake. Find in yourself what got you to that point, improve and grow. I freaking love that. Yes, absolutely. Don't focus on the whole mistake. And so like, I'm not saying don't address the mistake, right? Because we need to address the mistake. But the best thing you can do is address the successes first. Because when you address the successes first, you put your child in an energetic space where they can actually address the mistake in a productive way. In a productive way, because they're just going to be it's just like an argument, right? Think about how an argument goes. It is the same thing. When you're having an argument with someone, what happens? You've got two people butting up against each other, and you're not seeing one another's perspective at all. You know why? Because you're so stuck in the emotion that you can't see other people's perspective. You can't see their perspective. Your brain doesn't let you because you're so stuck in the emotion, and it's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is why we breathe. This is why we allow ourselves to shut the F up, take some deep breaths, and then address it. Walk away. The best thing you can do is walk away. And so something too, when my kids are struggling and they're really stuck in the emotion of frustration, when they're in the middle of something, practicing, doing something, I will make them stop and walk away and just go do something else for 10 minutes. If you've missed 10 layups in a row, you just can't seem to get them. I'm not saying don't stop practicing. I'm saying take a break and go do something that's going to put you in a higher vibration emotion and a better, more positive space so that you can actually go and get the practice that you need that's going to be productive. So if you're doing shitty at something, go do something that you know you're really good at and you're going to really succeed at it. Do it 10 times and then go back to the thing that you need to practice. I just showed up. What did I miss? Not to be rude. Oh, Jacob, you missed 26 minutes of quantum gold is what you missed. But I'm glad you're here now. So basically, the long and short of it is the way that we're looking at competition. We're looking at competition from an internal competitive aspect instead of so external. Because when we look at others and compare ourselves to others, we give our power away. When we look internally and look and assess ourselves and what we could have been better, what we could have done better in a situation, then we take our power back. And then we're not letting the outside world determine our self-worth, really. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. Do you want the external world to determine your self-worth, or do you want yourself to determine your self-worth? And though we love competition and we love watching our kids play sports, if we're not careful, the way that the whole paradigm is set up, our kids are going to grow up and allow the outside world to create their self-worth. And we don't want that. I struggled with that for years. I still struggle with it. You guys probably still struggle with it because, I mean, this mindset stuff, it's really is new. I mean, this is something that we see very high level athletes participating in now. Like they really, really, really take radical responsibility for the way the game goes. While they understand that it's a team sport, they really, really are learning that you've got to look inside of yourself and say, okay, I'm not going to point my finger at anyone else. I'm going to take responsibility in the collective collaboration of the lose or of the win, right? Oh my gosh, this was great. I've had so much interaction. My mind is freaking blown. See? So you know what I did today? Meditated. I wrote some gratitude statements. I took a run. What else did I do? Oh, and I did this technique called EFT tapping, which we'll get into at some point. And so I put myself in a really high vibration space today, and look at all the freaking interaction I got. This is amazing. Thank you so freaking much for joining me. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you sharing this space and time. It has been so, so wonderful. I hope that you will come back next week. Every Tuesday, 7:30-ish, I will be here. Have an amazing night and keep stepping up. Keep believing in yourself. You truly have something very, very unique that no one else in the universe has to offer. So it is so, so important that you share it with the world because you are unique, you are worthy, You are amazing. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Oh, so much love for you too. Bye bye.